All right, guys, I've got a story that still keeps me on edge. I'm not the kind of person who usually writes stuff like this, but this is too insane to just erase from my memory. So, it was a regular Friday. Long work day, boss was an asshole, coffee tasted like diluted piss, mood was at rock bottom. The only thing keeping me going was the thought of a fat, hot burrito with double cheese from my favorite takeout spot. You know that feeling, when you're heading home, already hyped just imagining yourself sinking into the couch, zoning out to Netflix and unwrapping that deliciousness. So I stop by El Rancho, a small Mexican joint that always delivers top-tier fast food. Pick up my order, even leave a tip, which I don't usually do. Everything's normal. But what's not normal is what I found inside when I got home. I shrug off my jacket, drop onto the couch, put on something as background noise, and unwrap the package. The smell is absolutely killer. I'm already about to sink my teeth into my well-earned reward for a shitty day. And then I see it. Between the layers of foil, right inside the bag, mixed in with the sauce and melted cheese, there's a dirty, used syringe. At first, my brain doesn't even register what I'm looking at. It doesn't compute because what the actual fuck is a syringe doing in my burrito? My heart drops. My hands instantly go clammy. I just stare at it. And then I realize that's not even the creepiest part. The creepiest part is that someone put it there on purpose. I'd be lying if I said I panicked right away. No, at first my brain just froze, like an old computer trying to process too many tabs at once. I stared at that dirty syringe, lodged in my burrito, and my first instinct was to just throw it away. Like, screw it, not my day, I'll just eat some cereal. But something wouldn't let me just brush it off. Slowly, like I was afraid the damn burrito might start talking to me, I grabbed a fork and carefully lifted the syringe. It was dark yellow with a murky residue inside. Definitely used. And I don't know why, but I immediately noticed it had no needle. The blunt end looked weird. A shiver ran down my spine. I shot to my feet, carried the bag to the kitchen, and dropped it into the sink. I was about to toss it in the trash when a thought suddenly hit me. What if this wasn't an accident? Like, okay, let's say someone dropped the syringe and it somehow ended up in the bag by mistake. But it was wrapped in foil, inside the food. That means someone deliberately put it there, and that's when I felt it. Someone was watching me. The feeling was so intense I turned around, fully expecting to see someone outside my window. But there was only darkness. Shit. I took a deep breath, grabbed my phone, and started Googling El Rancho's number. I had no idea what I was going to say, but one thing I did know. I needed to find out who put that in my food. All right, so I'm standing in my kitchen, phone in one hand, plastic bag with my now totally unappetizing dinner in the other. The syringe is still sitting in the sink, and I feel uneasy just looking at it. I find El Rancho's number and hit call. The dial tone drags on for way too long, and suddenly, a thought creeps into my mind. What if they know? What if that's why they're not picking up? And just as I start thinking the call's about to go to voicemail, someone finally answers. El Rancho, what's your order? Sounds normal, tired, uninterested. Hey, I just picked up an order from you, like 20 minutes ago. I've got a problem. What problem? His tone doesn't change and it pisses me off. There was a syringe in my food. Silence. And not just a brief pause. This was the kind of silence that drags on way too long. Hello? I almost think the call dropped. Then, in a slow, quiet voice, he finally speaks. Are you sure? What the hell do you mean, am I sure? It's sitting right here in my sink. Another pause. Then, suddenly, he says, You should throw it away, and don't call here again. What? Wait, what? Are you seriously telling me? Just throw it away. His voice sounds drained, like he's been through this before. You don't need this. You didn't order that. And then he hangs up. I just stand there, phone still in my hand, as cold, sticky anxiety starts spreading through my gut. What the hell did he mean? For a while, I just stared at my phone trying to process that conversation. You didn't order that. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Like I somehow stole the burrito? That's ridiculous. I paid, I tipped, I picked up my order, and I left. Everything was normal until I opened it. And then something clicked in my brain. I turned around sharply, looking at the packaging again. Something about it was off, but I couldn't figure out what. And then I saw it. There was no name on the bag. At all. El Rancho always writes your name in black marker, but this one was blank. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe they just forgot. But considering the syringe inside, and that unsettling phone call, I started to doubt this order was even meant for me. I quickly searched through the bag, hoping to find a receipt. Nothing. But when I looked at the wrapper, I noticed faint red stains on the paper. Shit. Was that blood? My stomach twisted into a knot. And that's when I heard it. A knock at my door. 3 sharp taps. Knock, knock, knock. I froze. Who the hell comes to my place this late? Another knock. Louder this time. I crept toward the door, trying to breathe as quietly as possible, and peeked through the peephole. A guy in a black jacket stood on my landing. He didn't look like a delivery guy or a neighbor. He just stood there, staring at the door. Then, slowly, he raised his hand and knocked again. And that's when it hit me. He was knocking in the exact same rhythm as in my dream last week. What the hell? I stood with my forehead pressed against the door, feeling the cold creep through me from the inside. That knock. It was soft, but deliberate. A sound that shouldn't have been familiar. But it was. My fingers tightened around the doorknob, but I didn't turn it. I just stood there, listening. My breath came shallow, my heartbeat hammering against my ribs. I hadn't thought about that dream for a week, but now it came rushing back as vividly as if I were reliving it. Everything was exactly the same. The silence stretching between each knock. The way my body tensed instinctively, even before my mind caught up. This isn't real, but the cold sweat on the back of my neck said otherwise. I almost dropped my phone. The message had no number, just unknown sender. I stared at the screen, that gnawing feeling growing inside me, the one that tells you something bad is about to happen. I typed a response. Who are you? 3 dots. Someone was typing. They stopped. Then they started again. A new message appeared. It's not yours. You took the wrong thing. Return it. Return what? The syringe. I looked at it. It was still lying in the sink. Dirty. Abandoned. I don't know why, but a thought crawled into my head and suddenly I felt it. Really felt it. This was something foreign. Like I had accidentally taken the wrong luggage at the airport and now the rightful owner was looking for it. I typed again. Where? The response came instantly. Where you took it? El Rancho. Shit. I don't know why, but the very thought of going back there made me sick. I threw on my jacket, grabbed a plastic bag, and shoved the syringe inside. It clinked against the plastic, the sound too loud for my empty apartment. Outside, the cold air bit at my skin. I glanced around. No one. But when I got into my car, I saw movement in the darkness through the rearview mirror. Something had been there a moment ago. I'm standing by the door. Someone's outside. I don't know who they are, but they're knocking. Everything in the dream had been blurry, but that sound was crystal clear. I remember my heart pounding, how I was afraid to breathe. And then, when I finally gathered the courage to look, there was no one. But now the guy was standing right in front of me, and I knew that if I opened the door, something would change forever. The guy outside didn't move. He just stood there, tilting his head slightly as if listening. I took a step back, grabbed my phone, dialed 911. 1 ring, 2. Then I heard it. The building's front door opening and closing. I rushed back to the peephole. He was gone. Had he realized I was calling the police? But here's the strange part. When the dispatcher answered, I froze. What was I supposed to say? Hi, there was a syringe in my food, and now there's a guy knocking on my door exactly like in my dream? I felt something sink inside me. Number. They wouldn't believe me. And then I realized I needed a different answer. I hung up and dialed El Rancho instead. The call was answered immediately. You didn't throw it away, did you? I froze. What? The syringe. You didn't get rid of it. Silence. It was meant for someone else. I could barely breathe. Who? The person on the other end sighed heavily. That doesn't matter. But now they know you have it. Who are they? There was a pause. Then, in a low, urgent voice, listen to me. If you want this to be over, get rid of it. And do it fast. The call ended. At that exact moment, my phone vibrated again. But it wasn't the same number. A new message appeared on my screen. Please return it. You weren't supposed to see this. I pulled out of the driveway, forcing myself not to look in the rearview mirror. But I couldn't help it. My eyes flicked up, and I almost slammed on the brakes. A dark figure slipped into the shadows. What the hell was that? No matter how much I tried to think rationally, reality was starting to crack. Panic took over, and I floored the gas, heading straight for El Rancho. My mind swirled with questions. How did I get involved in this? Why me? This was just a takeout order. Was I really meant to be the one who found something I was never supposed to? I thought about the message. Return it. Return it. To who? When I pulled up to El Rancho, something felt off. A place usually alive with noise and the scent of sizzling meat now stood silent and abandoned. The windows were dark. An old, rusted sign barely displayed its name, like this wasn't even the same restaurant. I walked up to the door and tried the handle. Locked. Through the glass, I could see a dark corridor stretching into the depths of the building. My hands were shaking. I didn't know what to expect, but I was sure of one thing. I wanted to get the hell out of there. But before I turned away, I noticed something that made my heart skip a beat. Scratched into the glass in jagged letters was a message. You are alone, and it's not yours. Shit. I felt something pulling me in. Like my steps, my choices, everything, had already been decided by someone whose eyes I had never met. I looked around, trying to make sense of it all. And then, in the distance, in the darkness, I saw him. The silhouette of a man. Barely visible in the night, but unmistakable. He was standing there, waiting for me. You came. His voice was quiet, but clear. You know what you have to do. There was no fear in his voice, no anger, just emptiness. Cold crept up my spine. You need to return it. He took a step toward me, and I knew I couldn't run anymore. Before I could say anything, he reached out his hand. I stood frozen, ears ringing. All I wanted was to go home, forget this nightmare, and pretend none of it had ever happened. But here he was, this guy with that same empty look in his eyes, reaching out. It wasn't a threat, just an expectation, like he was waiting for me to make my final choice, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing on the edge of something vast, something bigger than me, that this syringe, this random burrito, this entire night, had been part of something else all along, like I had stepped through some hidden door, and now I was inside a world where the rules were different. I couldn't turn away, couldn't step back. And I realized it the moment I heard my own voice whisper, "What do you want from me?" The man narrowed his eyes, pausing for a moment. "I don't want anything. You've already chosen. You know what you have to do." He stepped closer, and now I could see his face. His features looked familiar, like I should know him. But I didn't. And that's when I knew. This was too deep, too strange. My mind was searching for a way out, but my gut knew. I was already part of something I couldn't understand. The syringe. It wasn't mine, but someone needed it. I pulled it from the bag. It looked harmless in my hands, but I understood. If I didn't return it, I would never escape this. He took it without looking at me, and then, just like that, he disappeared into the dark. I was alone, standing outside the empty El Rancho, and whatever happened next, I knew. This had been my final stop. This was always meant to happen, and now there was no way out.